Hi everybody. I'm going to make a potato salad today for my husband. He loves potato salad. He loves meat and potatoes. So I'm just gonna make a really hearty potato salad that can be used as a meal, even if it's maybe added to another green salad, or you can add lots of other things to a side dish that has beans or rice or something. But in this case, tomorrow I'm actually going to be making my first try at carrot hot dogs. The recipe that I found is from Forks Over Knives, and it got a lot of rave reviews. So I'm gonna go ahead and make that to go with this. Today I'll make the hot dog buns that will go with it tomorrow also. So let's just get started. I'm gonna cut these up. This is 2 pounds of potatoes in this recipe. I'm gonna actually chop them ahead of time before I cook them, and then I'm just going to undercook them a little bit so they don't get really soft. I will be doing the rest of the ingredients that go into that as soon as I get the potatoes in, and I'll tell you what the rest of the ingredients are. You can actually, I don't know if you want to watch me chop potatoes, but I tend to want them in pretty good bite-sized pieces, so you know, everybody, that's going to be a little different, but in this case, I want them to cook about the same amount of time, so whatever size piece that looks like. And I'll be putting them in a pan to boil, and at the very last, I will be adding a bag of green beans. I saw a recipe that called for some other vegetables in the potato salad. In fact, I saw somebody who added to this potato salad some frozen peas because that added extra protein. So it was a really good idea. In my case, I have a bag of green beans that need to be used in the refrigerator. I will put them in the top compartment of the pan at the last few minutes so that I can steam them, and that will add quite a bit of nutritional value to this potato salad. Potatoes in general are not a bad carbohydrate. They have a lot of bad reputation because of being a starch, but in general they have a lot of value, particularly if you keep the skins. I peeled some of the skin on these because my husband, who grows potatoes, said they had some darker spots on them, and it's from them being in the storage all through the winter. And so I went ahead and peeled those dark spots off, but probably he or I wouldn't have had any problem with keeping them on. If you don't like the peels, of course, you can peel them. And the other thing to remember is that some people are very sensitive to nightshades, and potatoes, along with tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, those are all nightshade vegetables. Just because you are sensitive to one of those vegetables, maybe they cause some increased inflammation and pain in your body, it doesn't mean that you will necessarily have the same reaction to all of them. So it's worthwhile to test that and see if you're having a similar reaction to all of the nightshades, or is it just one or two. So in the next few weeks, I will be restarting the Clean Reset, because I have had several months of being away from home and traveling and eating out at restaurants and things like that. And I got to the point the other day when I couldn't even get out of bed. It was just so much pain. So I decided that I need to just clean it up again. And when I first decided to not be so strict with myself on some of the things, I didn't have any trouble. I did some of the whole grains that were easy to just find as a single grain, like wheat and farro and spelt and wheatberry, things like that. I actually did that and didn't have any trouble with it. But lately I know I've had a lot of different restaurant foods, and I'm to the point where my shoulders are really painful. Getting out of bed and walking just really bothers my knees and my ankles, and to the point where you almost don't want to put your foot down on the ground because you're having so much pain in all those joints. So it's time to do a reset, and we will be doing it with other people that are interested. So I'm going to kind of walk you through it as we get into that reset over these next few weeks, and just tell you how to do it one piece at a time. It's not easy, but when you can't move, it's definitely worthwhile. So I'm going to put these in a pan with a bit of water in the pan. You could probably steam them also. I really haven't tried steaming potatoes. And another way, you could maybe cook them in the microwave, but I don't know if they'd come out evenly cooked. So I kind of want them evenly cooked, not mushy. And then the last few minutes, like I say, I'm going to put the green beans in, they're fresh green beans, so that they can also steam for probably, again, not cooking all the way through, but I would say 3 or 4 minutes at least to steam them. All right, let's get the green beans here. So let me wash my cutting board off. I guess it doesn't actually matter. There we go. In the picture a little. And green beans, this is just a bag of organic green beans, washed and ready to eat, they say. I'm going to cut them into bite-sized pieces and put them with this. I think they will be really good in it. Some people used frozen peas. That would also be good in this dish. But because I have these, and I don't like it when food gets wasted. So if I can find a way to use things in a recipe. The other recipe that I saw that put greens in the potato salad was a recipe that used asparagus. And that would be a really good idea also, asparagus, but I don't have that today. So, but I would suspect that would be delicious. I'm going to cut these smaller, but let me just cut the ends off first. And always seems like the ends are a little bit ratty looking, so I like mine kind of clean. And then my garden rabbit will be fed a little bit of some greens. Green beans in general are one of people's favorite vegetables. So I'm always telling people that's one of the ones they should be using. Anything that's your favorite vegetable should be used in the meals that you make when you're trying to, especially when you're trying to switch over to whole foods, plant-based. Don't eliminate the whole foods that you know you like apples, oranges, bananas, things like that. But the other thing about green beans, I had to use them in a patient not too long ago who had a little bit of excess aluminum in his system. Green beans are very good for helping you to detoxify that particular metal from your body, aluminum. So I thought that was kind of interesting, the research that showed that. Let's see, let's just make sure all of these look decent. My husband, he would probably just throw the whole thing in. We always talk about this. We have different standards. I'm a little obsessive compulsive about some things, so I understand that. You do not have to do it this way. I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to I was going to cut them into approximately 1 inch pieces, but I think I'm going to cut them slightly smaller. I think maybe a little bit smaller would be helpful. If you do them a bunch in a row, it helps it go faster. So yes, we're starting the clean reset coming up in these next couple weeks. It is not difficult. What you're normally going to be doing is taking out all the foods that are known to cause major reactions in people, the most common ones. And let me just go down the list for you in case you want to do this. It's very challenging. Generally, what we do is have people actually get ready for the first week or two by practicing it, actually. Practice some recipes and see how you do. But the foods to eliminate that are the most common causes of sensitivity and food reactions are going to be your dairy, eggs, red meats especially, but even you can get a lot of inflammation from fish and chicken and any kind of meat or animal product. I don't have any meat or animal products in my diet, so that can't be what's causing it for me. But if you do, you should at least consider that if you're having a lot of pain or you're having a lot of unusual body reactions that you don't know what they're from, I would consider eliminating the meat, dairy, eggs, any of the animal food products. The other foods to consider are the wheat or gluten. Gluten is actually not just wheat. It tends to be barley, rye, all different types of wheat, of course, but also even some of the foods that are made with wheat, like I found out soy sauce is one of them. And then also foods that are manufactured with wheat products. So that would be why oatmeal is sometimes considered a gluten type food, because it contains gluten from being manufactured along with wheat products. And so if you're really trying to eliminate gluten, then you really need to go with a gluten-free oatmeal. I get one from Walmart that I really like. It's just gluten-free rolled oats, but you can find gluten-free even in the regular grocery store as long as it says gluten-free. An interesting thing with oatmeal, Quaker Oats actually only manufactures oats in most of their factories, and for that reason they tend to test very low in gluten because they're not manufacturing it along with a wheat or barley or rye. So just keep those things in mind when you're trying to do this elimination. The other foods that are eliminated on this particular diet, and I'll be doing this, I'm going to do it all the way through this, straight from the top to the bottom, because I'm just so uncomfortable and I need my body to really be reset back to a nice point where I'm not having pain everywhere. I should be able to walk without knee pain, without ankle pain, hip pain. I should be able to move around without my shoulders bothering me. So the other things would be alcohol. Caffeine is eliminated in the beginning. Green tea would be wonderful, and it's probably one of the first things I'll add back because I've never had trouble with green tea before. But green tea has caffeine, and when you're trying to reset, it's good to go back and try to reset, actually do it. The other thing that I have really added to my diet recently is coffee. And, you know, some coffees do contain gluten. They're not gluten-free. And some coffees cause reactions, especially if you're having trouble with molds and things. Occasionally we'll find that coffees are really high in molds. So are nuts sometimes. So sometimes I don't think it's so much that people have nut allergies as they have allergies to the molds that are contained in the nuts. I think that is actually more common than we realize, which would definitely make sense because molds are a very common allergy. It's just one of those things lots of people have. So see, I'm cutting these just a little smaller than I said. And I think that'll make a little bit more bite-sized pieces to have in this potato salad. This is actually going to be a great salad for my husband because he loves green beans. He loves potatoes. This is a really good one. We're going to use a dressing that is avocado, actually. And what most people said when they reviewed this was that they could not taste the avocado. It was more of a creamy kind of dressing. So they really didn't have this overwhelming taste of avocado in it. I will also be using some lemon and some other spices and seasonings, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes when I get these green beans ready to put in the pan there for steaming. And when you test your potatoes, make sure they're not overdone. You want them a little bit firm so that you can enjoy that potato salad without it being mushy or falling apart. My husband and I eat a potato salad pretty easily, meaning the two of us can eat a lot of potato salad. I eat more than he does for some reason. I don't know. I think it's because a lot of these foods that I eat that are whole foods, plant-based foods, they often don't have a lot of calories. I'm not adding extra oils to anything. So even in this recipe, it's one that I'll be using that you would normally think of adding mayo. I won't be adding any mayo because of the eggs and the oil that are in it. So in this recipe, what's going to take the place of the oil will be the avocado. I should tell you one more thing I'm doing differently than the recipe, and that is my avocado is actually a mild guacamole. So it already has some lime and some spiciness to it, a little bit of spiciness, not much. But, you know, those are the same flavors that this recipe calls for. So I'll just adjust the recipe ingredients just a little bit in relation to the avocado that I'm putting in there, the guacamole. And we should get a very tasty version of this potato salad. You know, if you've ever watched me, that I am not a cook, and I do not do recipes on my site for you to learn how to cook. I have never been a good cook, and I am mostly doing some of the food preparation because I want you to be really aware of how to take some of these foods and make the best version of your favorite recipe so that you can enjoy whole food, plant-based eating. All right, clean my cutting board off. I will check the potatoes. So I have a steamer that goes in the top of my big kettle, and I just put the green beans in the top part, which is steaming, for about 3 or 4 minutes. Let me just set a timer. I'm gonna say 4 minutes and I'll check them. They probably take a little longer than that, but we'll go ahead and check. And then I'm going to just chop the onion that goes in it and chop the celery. I love onion and celery in my potato salad, and I don't know if that it's necessarily going to go with the green beans that much, but I don't think it will clash. Some people, they didn't have dill to use. I'm going to use dried dill, actually, because I don't have fresh dill, but I think fresh dill would be wonderful if you had it. It's always, I think, the little bit that I do know about cooking is I do find that the flavors are much more fresh and intense when you're using fresh herb and you have those available, but sometimes we don't. So I think that said half an onion. I'm just going to do a little bit of a chop here. I do have an onion chopper, and I love using it when I have to do a lot of onions, but if it's just one onion, I can probably do this pretty easily. Then we'll do the celery after this. I would say we're going to need to cool down those potatoes a little, and the way we'll do that is we'll stop them cooking. Might have to put some cold water on them to stop them from cooking. Same with the beans. But the other interesting thing about potatoes is that when you actually have potatoes and you cool them, you crystallize some of the starches and sugars in those potatoes, and you actually slow the reaction of your body to take those in and absorb them. So you are actually slowing down the possible blood sugar spike that might occur if you just had them straight from the pan. But we are going to cool them. This is a potato salad, so it will be, you know, we'll need to cool them just a little bit. I need celery. All right, we're just gonna chop the celery. I just checked the potatoes and the green beans. They're both done, so they're both cooling on the side here. Very nice. They both seem about right. If If anything, I probably could have left the potatoes a minute less, but they're delicious, so I think it'll be just fine. It's going to be a creamy potato salad. All right, and I don't think you need to be fancy about this part either. So I'm just gonna go down the middle and if that seems too wide, do that. Same with this one. And so just kind of chopped. Let's move these off to the side. Okay. We will be putting some, at least one type of mustard. We're going to put Dijon mustard, and maybe we might use two types. I think we're using Dijon. Anyway, we're going to use Dijon mustard. We're going to use a little bit of dill weed. I'm going to use dried, so I'll use a little extra since it's not fresh. And we're going to use a little bit of horseradish. My husband, his brother makes the horseradish, and it's quite delicious. We're going to go ahead and add it. It should be really good. I'm going to use, like I said, a little bit of the avocado that's already in the containers as guacamole. So it tends to have a little bit of jalapeno or some type of heat to it. But these are often very mild, so I'm not worried about that. And then it usually has lime in it. Might have a little bit of salt. Mine has water, jalapeno, pepper, salt, onion, vinegar, garlic. So it's got a little bit of everything. So I'll have to vary my ingredients just a little bit as we start to mix everything together here. I also have green onions, but I don't have that. So we can put a little parsley on it at the end if we want. It'll call for salt and pepper, but we have a little bit in the guacamole already, so I'll be taking note of that. And same with fresh lemon. It calls for fresh lemon and Dijon and a little bit of smoked paprika. I'm gonna get that also. That would be quite wonderful in this. So smoked paprika, and let's get a big bowl. So I'm gonna be using a very big bowl because I like lots of room to stir things. I'll just put all those in there. Let me check my green beans and my potato. Drain those. Add it to the dish. So this is the steamer that goes in the top of my pan. Now we need avocado. So one of these containers, I'm going to need 4 because one is about 2 ounces and I'm going to be using a full cup. So we'll be using 4 of these. I am very conscious of the amount of plastic that I'm using here. But one of the things about using plastic for this particular dish, besides the fact that it's a nice big bowl, is that we're not putting anything hot in it. You really don't want hot things in plastic. They tend to deteriorate the plastic, and what they find is that you get portions of it into the food that you're actually ingesting. So that's really not something you want. And you certainly don't want to be cooking in your microwave with plastic for that very reason, that the plastic chemicals end up in your food and then in you. This is just a different brand from my other one. This particular chunky guacamole is also very good, but it might be a little bit hotter than the other one. I don't know. We're gonna put this part on first, and then we're gonna adjust the seasonings with the Dijon mustard and everything. Mustard is also, if I'm not mistaken, is a nightshade or a cruciferous vegetable. I gotta look it up real quick. So it's not a nightshade, but it is a cruciferous vegetable. Interesting. I don't usually add that to my list when I'm telling people I want them to have cruciferous vegetables, but mustard is one of them. I knew it had some odd thing like that. Another one that's a nightshade, and that is rooibos. You know, the rooibos tea that you sometimes hear. It is a nightshade, and I've had people who were allergic to nightshades, and they were also allergic to that. So this particular person I'm thinking of, though, she had an actual allergy. She didn't have a food sensitivity. So there's a difference between having an allergy and a food sensitivity, and that's why when you go to your doctor can get a little bit, let's just say impatient. Your doctor can be a little impatient about the patient's understanding of an actual allergy versus a food sensitivity, because actually in medicine we don't generally check for food sensitivities in people. I do this in my current practice because we are practicing functional medicine, and in functional medicine we do recognize that some people, they may not have a true allergy, but they are having reactions to food. And sometimes the reactions are like what I'm having with lots of inflammation and pain. And other times the reactions are going to be things like gut symptoms, maybe something that causes diarrhea, constipation, cramping. Those would be different kinds of reactions. Then we have other people who have sensitivities in that they'll have rashes. Maybe it's not an allergic rash, but maybe it is a rash that they break out with in eating certain foods that contain gluten. So now we are adding the rest of the seasonings. Lemon juice, 2 teaspoons, a tablespoon of Dijon mustard, and a 1/4 teaspoon of smoked paprika. In this particular recipe, it's interesting. They feel like people will generally want the taste to be less tart. And so to counteract that, they have you add a little bit of some maple syrup. I do not think that I will probably do that, because for my husband and I, we just generally don't mind the tartness. And it can be quite tasty, actually, especially if you have vegetables that have a little bit of sweetness to them. Peppers are a good example, red peppers. Another one that will sometimes counteract it is some of the little sweet tomatoes, and they will balance that tartness out very nicely, almost like you're having a sweet and sour dish. So that was 2 teaspoons of lemon. We're going to do 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard. I have this one, it's called Smash Kitchen. I haven't tried it yet. We will open it and try it. Talking about plastic, there's no way you can get away from plastic the way things are today. We just have them in everything, on everything. Everything's packed in them. You just can't get away from plastic. Looks like about a tablespoon. Great. A teaspoon of the smoked paprika. I get a lot of people asking me what the ingredients are for a recipe, and for the most part, I do generally try to follow a recipe, but I don't hesitate to substitute. I feel like all cooking is an experiment anyway. You know, sometimes even your flour, the day you use it, if you're in a climate that's hotter or colder or drier or wetter, more humid, it can make your flour act so differently. And so you have to be able to kind of wing it sometimes. I'm going to go with about 2 teaspoons of dill. And let's try that. Like I said, it's a matter of winging it sometimes. All cooking is an experiment. So, and that's the other thing I love about some of these recipes, that you can vary them. You know, people ask me what the recipe was, but I don't necessarily think people have to do a recipe exactly the way I did it. You can still have variations in that, and I think sometimes people are hesitant to do that, to make some adjustments, and you shouldn't be. It's only food. I mean, you can always adjust more, or, you know, make some other back adjustments. Let me see how much horseradish we need. We didn't put that in yet. It smells good. My husband's gonna love this. This is way too much for us to eat. We're gonna have to share it with our neighbors here. What a beautiful salad, though. Going to get the paprika and everything really mixed in here. I'm using a little bit of a spatula to fold. I hear that's a good way to prevent things from falling apart when you're stirring, especially if you cooked your potatoes too much. A little bit of horseradish, half a teaspoon to start with. Horseradish varies quite a lot. And I've had the experience of having it be way too hot. But I think we'll start with a half a teaspoon and we'll see how that goes. And like I said, this particular horseradish was actually made by my brother-in-law. So I have no idea. You know what? I stir that in. Okay, this is just a follow-up on the potato salad recipe. I'm going to have a little bit more because it is very delicious. But that's not the main follow-up. So I used a half a teaspoon of horseradish in this, and you can barely taste it. So I will add more to it because I think it's a really nice little complement to it. Another thing you could add a little bit more of if you wanted to, I think, would be a little bit of the lemon or Dijon. A little tiny bit more tartness would be really nice in this recipe. So we're going to put this in the refrigerator. The other thing with this is you want it to be eaten pretty quickly because you have the avocado. So when I store it in the refrigerator, I'm going to store it so that as little air can get to it as possible. So I'm going to have a dish that is either very small for the amount that we have left, because avocado does go brown when it's exposed to the air. So this is something that if you make it, probably don't want to make quite as much as I made unless you're going to have the whole neighborhood eat it, so that you don't have it turning brown with oxidation. That's the only other thing with this recipe. And then later on this weekend, I'm going to be making a cheese sauce that I found again on Forks Over Knives, and it had a lot of really good reviews, and it was made without nuts, and in fact it was made with oat flour. So with all those great reviews, I'm going to test it and see what that turns out to be. And the third thing I'm going to make this weekend, I think I told you at the beginning, are the carrot hot dogs. That's going to be interesting, but I tell you, I probably wouldn't do it, except that it had so many great reviews, and I have always wondered about them, and I think it will be worth it to try. Okay, see you then.